Hello and welcome back again to Rage Gaming and more Wilds launch content. This time we're talking tips to be a better hunter in these early days of low rank. Since we were lucky enough to get access before launch, there's quite a few things I wish I knew a bit sooner, things that would have been worth doing sooner rather than later. All of this will avoid being spoilery as much as possible though, so let's just get straight into it. First things first, the two things that you're going to want to do sooner than later because it becomes muscle memory and it gets annoying to deal with later if you're used to a different thing. Come to your item menu in the tent, go to item pouch, and what you want to do if you're using a controller is press the left stick in. Here that will pull up the item loadouts, at which point you can set up your basic item loadout, which you can see I've improved and changed over time, and I only have 3 loadouts at this time anyway. The gathering loadout has very little to make a lot of room for supplies. This is for when I'm just doing gathering runs, obviously. But the basics and the mega potions, it's the same set, but one of them actually has the armor and demon drug. But either way, I want you to set up a loadout, and here's what I have in mind. I have all the relevant pods. Lure pods, to draw attention to myself or bring a monster to like an obstacle or something. Large and small dung pods. Large because it's great for AoEing a pack of monsters and separating them, like say herds or whatever. But I think you need to still bring dung pods, because it means you can specifically target an annoying monster that's shown up and just get rid of that one, stay fighting where you are. Screamer pods obviously for the certain underground monsters, flash pods for flying monsters, and then I've got my 2 traps. The mega barrel bombs, which are the bigger ones that you can get. For capturing, you've got trank bombs. Yes, armor charm and power charm are in the game, but will come much later in the game. Depending on which locale I'm in, I have hot and cool drinks, because, why not? I don't want to have to keep managing this every time I go to a different locale. And then things to help me with being affected by monster effects, deodorant, cleanser. You might run energy drinks as well. Obviously, nullberry, herbal medicine, antidote, all of this is great. On top of that, rations and well-done steaks are a good idea. If you've been hunting for a while and you don't want to go back and eat. Max potions for a panic full heal, obviously your potions for healing. And that's what I run in my basic loadout. If I'm going harder than that, then I'll also consider demon drug and armor related buffs. Most of the time, having a basic loadout's great because you can pop back into the tent, immediately pull this up, immediately restock, and get back out there in half a second. On that note, customize your radial menu. The sooner you do this, the less you'll regret it later. As you can see, I have every single one set up and full. Let me show you how I've got this set up just for real gameplay. To pull it up, I just hold L1 on my controller, and then we have all of our different setups. At the top middle, we have action. This is the one that I'm using directly in combat. So I'd recommend optimal health recovery and status recovery left and right like its default setup, because that's so smooth and easy. And then everything else is stuff you're actually going to use in the middle of a fight. So whetstone for sharpening, flash pods for flying wyverns, screamers for the ones that go underground, a panic button in form of the max potion, rations so I can easily get stamina back if it starts to, lose its effect, and then the relevant mantle that I want to use. This is the most important thing to set up in my opinion. To the left of that, I have my essential items. So I've got my 2 traps, and then in the middle, trank bombs for that. Then the rest of my pods, dung, large, and luring pods. So I've got the one that I'm on by default. I just swap to this one on the left. I'm good to go, straight back to action. Say the monster's gone to sleep, then I'll go to my bomb section, where I have all my different kinds of bombs, and also for convenience, my cool and hot drinks. That's all you really need to set up in my opinion. Outside of that, there's convenience stuff. I've got something for crafting. I have tools in general, your capture net, binoculars, stuff that's convenient, but not that I need immediately in the middle of a fight. For fun, I also have communication stuff. Like for example, did you know that you can put your own custom text on stickers? They're very funny, and I don't know, playing with others, spamming them, there's been some great ones. And then I have my buff tab for the try-hard runs, where I'm using, might pills, might steeds, and demon drug, and so on. But the main thing is to have at least these top 3 set up, and that's what I recommend. As a little bonus tip, if you hold L1 on a controller and then press the pad in the middle on a PlayStation controller, it'll be something similar on Xbox or otherwise, it opens up the whole menu like that. So let's say I don't want to use an evasion mantle, I want to use a ghillie mantle. It's as easy as that, like I can literally just press it. The tools are here as well, and I've got all my pods on the left side here, the traps are in the middle. This doesn't move around at all, so it is a way to conveniently get to the items you want if for some reason you can't stand the radial wheel. But the radial wheel is so good, I wouldn't recommend it too much. Next, I want to talk about the smithy and some of the low rank gear that you're going to care about while you're actually playing for the first time. Not all of it is the most vital stuff, but there's stuff worth mentioning. Leather set has botanist if you're going to be gathering herbs and want double, and then geologist is actually very important, as we talked about recently with the cooking stuff. At level 2, geologist means you get 1 extra item when gathering special items. These are the things that you trade to get ingredients for better cooking, so it is worth having in a low rank set if there's no relevant skills anyway. Now, naturally, different weapons will have different relevant equipment skills. I would say the first most relevant skill you're going to find for any set, for any weapon, is going to be Quick Sheath for longsword users to help with your special sheath gameplay. This is found on the Alloy set, which is very early on, pretty much right after Cumatrice. And a little tip for you, if you press triangle on this, or Y on an Xbox controller, you can choose add to wishlist, right? Then there's this really cool feature called Forge and Upgrade from your wishlist, allowing you to fast craft something that you wish listed a while ago, or if you forgot what you actually need and want to check what the required materials are, super quick way to do it. And I would say the next monster that has convenient skills on it in the early game will be Balahara, because they have evade extender levels on the equipment skills. This is particularly potent for slower weapons that have slower movement. But if you're a bow and dual blades user, then I'd recommend Hirabami, because that provides you with a few levels to evade window. 2 or 3 makes a massive difference for your perfect evades of discerning dodge for bow, and of course demon dodge for dual blades. It's night and day. But yeah, I don't want to spoil too much there. Those are just some skills you can find on low rank gear. But if you are wondering when you unlock layered armor, it's when you hit high ranked. Any gear that you craft in its high rank version now becomes layered armor. To access that, go to your tent, go to the last tab, appearance menu, and go to equipment appearance. Any set that you've crafted in high rank will now appear here, and yeah, layered armor, that simple. Another thing that I want to say about your low rank gear is that other than specific skills that you're grabbing, you want to think about the defense stat. Obviously, the starting set of Hope only has 2 defense per piece, up to 10 then. Looking at the Rompompolo armor set, which is not too far into the game, you're up to 18 defense per piece. So you're pushing towards 100 defense versus 10, greatly reducing the damage you're taking from monsters. So it is worth upgrading your gear, irrelevant of equipment skills, just for the defense stat. But of course, you could also consider using armor spheres after completing the first oilwell basin hunt, at which point you can use these to upgrade the pieces you have to the max level. So this armor piece here, it's sat at defense 14 at its base level. When we fully upgrade it, it goes up to 28, doubling the defense that it has. So it's another thing you can make use of. But you know, there's another system here with Gemma called talismans. These are a different slot that you can equip to get different equipment skills, such as offensive ones like the Amazing Weakness exploit. You unlock more charms to craft after defeating each monster associated with it. So if you don't at least have one, get one equipped as soon as possible. And lastly, for the smithy systems, be aware of the forged Palico equipment. It's not going to matter massively how much damage your Palico is actually doing, but it is worth upgrading here and there. The materials are very minimal. But if you were going to craft a single weapon for your Palico, I would go with the Lalabarina weapon, whether that's low or high rank. This is one of the only weapons for the Palico that comes with paralysis as its status or element. So you might get a free DPS window on the monster because your Palico triggered paralysis. Now let's talk some general tips, like for example, side quests, which you will first unlock after the Congalala hunt in the Scarlet Forest. These begin to unlock new mechanics, but also provide a lot of different rewards, like the many special ingredients you'll get for cooking. One of the most common ones is going to be Eastern Honey, which is used to increase the potency of your potion healing. So that's pretty damn good throughout a whole of a playthrough. In high rank particularly, there is a ton of very important unlocks that come from side quests, but even in the story, this is where you're going to unlock key features like the farm and other important benefits you wouldn't want to ignore. One tip I want to give you about each locale is really exploring it. As you can see, I found loads of pop-up camp locations that I'm not currently using. That's because I'm at the maximum. You want to really explore and find the ones that are not dangerous. Like for example, this is a dangerous area that can easily be found by monsters, so it's probably not the best camp location. In fact, there's a cave entrance right next to it that brings you down to a location where there's another 10, and here it's completely safe, surrounded by high value nodes, has multiple exits like the cave system where you might find Balahara, and then lets you quickly move up to where that tent is anyway. So it's worth exploring for that purpose alone. But make sure you've got your tent set up around the map so you're able to get to the monster during a hunt quickly. You're going to experience, as I've been, that a lot of people just don't have these set up properly, so you have to do a lot of running on other people's maps. At very least, have yours set up so you don't. Little tip for you though, you can come to Conut, the support desk in one of the base camps, and manage them from this location, using the Manage Pop-Up Camps feature. So this gives me a list of every single place that I found so far on this map. So if I've seen a pop-up camp location that could be an option, it's here. I don't have to physically go to it though. I could have this destroyed or removed here and then set up a new camp from this same menu without physically going to it again. And it also gives you a nice way to look at the whole map and go, I could do with a tent over in, say, Area 13, because I got nothing over there. Looks like I've got 3 options in Area 13. Let me pick the best one. Now, something that's insane that obviously we've been using during the betas is the environmental traps. As you can see, this is a falling boulder that I could drop on a monster for about 400 damage, and it would also knock it down for a free DPS window. You can indeed see these on the map. If we filter by traps in environmental, you'll see just those. So we have things like paratoads and healing options in the vigor wasps, CC options in the flash flies. Wiggly Litchi will actually give you a stamina buff for a while. Then we can see all of the different boulder drop locations. These can even come in upsurges to have even more on the map than there is now, which is awesome. But you absolutely want to be making use of them. The boulders are an obvious one, but they're not the only one. For example, one of the best ones you can find on the Windward Plains is this right here, a vine trap. And you don't need to time it, just put it down and it works as basically a trap and drag the monster into it, they'll be caught in it. It's not like you have to perfectly drop it on it like a boulder would. But you know, there's less obvious options too, like for example, this small monster, the little raptors you'll find all over the place. And what they do is they attack monsters or hunters if they're hurt or vulnerable. So if you're causing a monster to stagger next to one of these things, they'll pile on it and give you another free DPS window. You can also find pod types, like say this thorngrass pod, which will give you a way to interact with the monster, provide an extra DPS window that gives you bonus damage against that thorngrass. Or we can create unique pods from the small life or endemic life, like this one, a bleeding pod, dealing bonus damage to wounds in a little potent shot. Be aware that some monsters, when you deal damage to them, will suddenly drop a monster part. Now, this used to be really convenient and important. You pick these up because it'd be literally monster parts you'd use to equip and upgrade gear. Now they don't do that anymore. However, these do create unique pods that are really potent, that could even lead to a mini stagger, full stagger, or just a burst of damage against a monster, so they are worth picking up and using. Lastly, for these general tips, I do want to tell you about traps and how they're so useful. I often recommend shock traps in particular because these are easier to craft en masse, they require a lot less. Be aware, in wilds you can re-pick up traps that you put down and it's just missed, like when a monster runs away awkwardly. But to capture a monster, all you need is a trap that's active, and then, not one, but 2 trank bombs, which will put the monster to sleep and capture it. This is done when the monster has a skull on the icon and is essentially pretty low health now. Of course, you could continue the fight and finish them off and actually slay them, and I recommend that for your first hunt. It's just a nice thing to do. But let's say you're farming a monster over and over for parts to make it set or something, using the mechanic of captures really speeds things up, so it's worth doing. If you're unaware of how to get access to these traps, what you're going to need is a trap tool and then the associated material. So for pitfall traps, that's nets. Nets are made using ivy and spider webs. So we can make some more there, but you can see I have much less pitfall traps than I do have shock traps, which are a lot easier to make. Thunderbug capacitors, which you can find by picking up flash bugs and such throughout the locale, as well as using your farm, which is where most of mine come from. And then trap tools again. Where do you get trap tools? Well, you just get it from the trader in each base camp. And as you can see, he sells them. If I go to box, he sells trap tools for 100 centi per. And sometimes he does sales like this, so things are really cheap. And I'm just going to buy a bunch of them. The last thing you need is a trank something, whether that's bomb or blade. I just use bombs. This requires sleep herbs and parashrooms. Again, you can use the farm to make these, which is no problem, or like gather those things. But don't forget, you can find exactly where these things are by using the filter icon. Let's go to gathering. So this shows me the exact location of all the sleep herbs on this map, as well as all the parashrooms to go physically collect them if I need to. Alright, last topic I want to talk about is some quick combat tips. First thing is focus mode. I recommend that you have the toggle on for this rather than having to hold it. As I've explained recently, basically holding an extra button and having to think about that can be complicated for some weapons. Insect glaive is an obvious example of that because you have so much to manage with that weapon in particular. Having one less thing to actually think about, so you just turn it on and off when you need to, it's so nice. And obviously, that still applies to all weapons. But be aware that the focus mode provides you more accurate or bigger movement towards your target. So if you're aiming at a monster and you're doing attack combos, you'll move to that target with much bigger movement than normal. So it's really useful for that too. For wounds that you're going to be attacking with focus mode and all that, of course, they're great targets to pop with focus mode strikes, and you know, lots of weapons get different benefits for doing that. But don't forget that they are ideal weak points. Like if there's a wound on the head of a monster and you knock it down, you don't have to focus strike it, you could do your regular great DPS combos and just benefit from the fact that there's a wound there. But also be aware that wounds on the legs of monsters, such as, you know, a bipedal monster, if you pop one of those, it'll often knock it down. So it's a good idea to not pop both leg wounds at the same time. You want to separate them so you can maximize multiple knockdowns and get lots of DPS windows. Be aware that there are also special weak points that exist on all of the monsters at specific moments. These aren't wounds, they're special weak points. They're shown at key moments, like for all the beta monsters, right? The belly of Dashagama is exposed when it stands up to go for a big slam. The tongue of Chattacabra after like a big lick. Or the exposed insides of the horns of Radial after one of the big lightning shots. All monsters have something like this, usually after a big super move. And so, yeah, it doesn't even require a wound to do, it's free DPS. A couple of other quick ones. The Seikret can pick you up when you're knocked down, as I've said many times. This is a great way to get up and out of a bad spot. And the Seikret also has a bit of auto dodge frames, like iframes, to help protect you, especially in those moments. So if you get knocked down, call your Seikret. In regards to mounting, be aware that you can leap from the back of your Seikret for aerial attacks at any time. Often the best ones are triangle plus circle at the same time to dismount. Many weapons get unique dismount attacks with that attack in particular. When you are mounting, be sure to open up as many wounds as you can, but I always recommend that you open a wound on the head and then open a wound on, say, the back of the monster in a place where you're not likely actually going to be able to reach. So you pop that out of reach wound to end the mount and then max DPS the head. Now you've opened a wound there as well. Lastly, sneak attacks are amazing, you should be doing them. They provide a massive burst of damage and a mini flinch on the monster. This can then be followed up with all kinds of attacks, like a special charge of longsword for a free level up. Dual blades can quickly build some demon gauge. Be aware that sneak attacks don't require the ghillie to actually do, but the ghillie just makes it really easy to run right up to it if you need it. And I found that during certain turf war moments, you can get a sneak attack off for some bonus damage. But yeah, there you have it. Those are just some of the things that I think a new low rank hunter is going to benefit from thinking about. Building those good habits early, like the radial wheel stuff, really helps long term. And it also means later you won't have formed bad habits and struggle when you set that up late. But if you guys have any tips or advice you'd like to add to this, then you can let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.